So it's a Monday night here in Montreal, and I'm just biking down Mount Royal Avenue. As you can see, even in the summer, people are out. In cities like Toronto, you would call that a patio. Here in French-speaking Canada, you call it a terrace. But other than that little difference, I'm going to share some other differences between Montreal, where I live, and Toronto. Of course, Toronto is the biggest city in Canada by far. Here in Montreal, we have 4 million if you include Laval and the suburbs. So it's not a small city at all. But the difference is it feels like a much smaller city. I mean, even this area here, when you look at all that blue sky above us, does it feel like we are walking distance from downtown in the second largest city in Canada? Not really. It feels like we're in the main street of a town or something like that. And someone once described Montreal to me that way. To be fair, the guy who said it was from China, a country that has a lot of huge cities. So he has a different comparison point than I do. But he said that Montreal feels like a bunch of little towns. Like every neighborhood feels like a town. And I would say that's true. In French, they sometimes use the term village, a village. You could say, oh, the area called Notre-Dame-de-Grâce feels like a village. You know, Mile End feels like a village. It's that idea of every neighborhood has its own little community. Now, Toronto, on the other hand, is, in many ways, it's our New York City. It's the concrete jungle. And I'm not saying there's no sense of community. And to be fair, to put my cards on the table, I've never lived in Toronto, but I live in Montreal. So there could be aspects of Toronto that I don't fully understand. And if someone from Toronto, a Torontonian, as we call it, you might also notice I'm saying Toronto and not Toronto. Very common for Canadians to just say Toronto. Just as French people don't say Montreal, they say Montreal. Montreal is the French-Canadian pronunciation. But yeah, if anyone from Toronto thinks I am mischaracterizing here, let me know. I'm open to being corrected. But my impression on all my trips to Toronto is that, I mean, it's a concrete jungle. A few years ago, I'm not sure if this is still the case, but a few years ago I saw the statistic that Toronto has the most construction cranes of any city in North America. That means more than New York, you know, more than Chicago, more than all those huge American megacities. Up here in the Great White North of Canada, where we have the most construction cranes, and that is Toronto. Of course, with that, you have to wonder if there are, you know, downsides. I have a friend named Malcolm who lives in Toronto, and he was telling me last time I visited and I saw him, he was just he was ranting a lot about the, what's it called, the TTC, Toronto Transit. He was talking about how it's just unbelievably bad and always delayed, and they make these announcements about the train being delayed, and it's just this muffled voice that sounds like and you can't even hear when the next train's coming or anything. Yeah, he just thought it was laughably bad. Now here in Montreal, I've heard people complain about the trains, complain about the bus. I mean, the buses in particular, I've had a bad experience with. But the subway, or the metro as we call it here. I wish it would go a bit later. I wish it wouldn't stop at 1 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday night. I wish it was 24 hours like they had in New York City, but I'll take what I can get on that one. And I'll enjoy the fact that when it is closed, I can bike down nice calm streets like I am right now. I see construction over there. So I will take a left and show you another calm street over here. It's getting late, but of course this is summertime, so we have long days here in Toronto. Here in Toronto, what am I saying? Here in Montreal. Maybe the reason I said here in Toronto is I'm actually going to Toronto tomorrow morning. I'm taking the Via Rail train. It's about a 5-hour journey. I think the exact number on my ticket is 5 hours and 9 minutes. And that is something I'm super excited about. So I guess in part, I'm making this video to think about some of the differences and similarities and to get excited for that trip. If anyone sees this, right away you can offer me some tips on things maybe I should do or see. I think it's going to be a very different urban environment than Montreal. But whether one is better than the other, that's debatable. You know, just in case someone is watching this who's thinking of moving to Canada and considering between these two cities, I need to point out something very obvious, which is that Montreal is in the province of Quebec, which is a French-speaking part of Canada. I, of course, speak English in this video and in most of my videos, but I do speak some French, and I have a recent video called, it's called something like un vidéo tout en français, like a video all in French, where I practice my French. So if you want to see the level at which, and I'm not saying this is the level you need to be if you move here. Some people would say you should be much better than me. Some people would say, oh, you only need a few words. Highly contentious topic. But to make a long story short, if you want to show respect to the people and the culture of this great city, it's good to learn some French. Not everyone wants to put in that effort, and you sometimes see online people say, oh, well, just learn French. Like they'll just say, you know, move to Montreal, just learn French, it's easy. I don't agree with that. I actually think it's very difficult to learn a new language. It's a major time commitment. And if you are, let's say you're a middle-aged mother or father of 2 kids, you just got a new job opportunity in Toronto or Montreal, you're going to be busy, you have a lot of things going on in your life, you have no natural skill in languages, well then, go to Toronto. Maybe you're an immigrant who your first language is Portuguese or something, and you don't know a word of French, you speak a bit of English, and you're learning English already. The idea of learning English and French simultaneously to move to Canada is much harder than just learning English, I would say. So for a lot of situations, yeah, it makes sense to go to Toronto. But if you are open to the French language, if you see videos like the one I'm filming right now, and you think, wow, what a cool, unique city. Or you think, you know, I've always admired the French culture. Though, of course, Quebec is a bit different than France. That's a whole nother discussion. But I think it's fair to say there are, of course, similarities as well. The style, the cuisine. It's based in the history of France. So I think it's fair still to say there's the French spirit living on here in some way. If that interests you as well, and importantly, if you're able to deal with slightly colder winters, yes, we have colder winters. If someone watching this from Montreal, or if someone watching this from Toronto is thinking about moving to Montreal, they might be thinking, you know, how is that possible? Because it's very cold in Toronto as well. But there's definitely a humidity to the city in the winter. Even today on a summer day, there's a humidity to the city. The cold just hits here different in the wintertime. Check out the lineup for the ice cream place around the block. What else can I say? Am I being unfair to Toronto? I will say that wages are higher over there. If I were to summarize this whole video in a couple of sentences, I would say that people in Toronto live to work, people in Montreal work to live. People here really enjoy their lives. But yeah, a lot of people who want to advance in their careers in tech and stuff like that, they eventually move to Toronto, or they move to the United States, where the salaries are significantly higher. Someone else told me that Montreal's a city where no one ever grows up. I guess I was gonna try to deny that, but honestly it's true. But once again, I gotta go home because I have a trip to Toronto by train tomorrow. I'm planning to make a little video showing the Via Rail train ride. So that'll be interesting for anyone who's interested in train travel in Canada. Stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.